Come close, gather round, and listen closely to the tales of Japan's spookiest urban legends. In the streets of Tokyo, there's a ghostly woman called Kuchisake Onna, known as the Slit-Mouthed Woman. She wears a mask and asks, "Am I pretty?" But if you say yes, she'll show you her terrible grin, a mouth sliced open from ear to ear. Then there's Teke Teke, a ghost woman who crawls on her elbows, making a chilling sound. Tick, tick, tick. She hunts those who dare to cross her path, seeking revenge for her tragic fate. And in school bathrooms, beware of AKA Manto, the Red Cloak. He lurks in the last stall, offering red or blue paper. Choose wrong, and you'll meet a gruesome end. These aren't just stories. They're warnings of the dangers that lurk in the dark corners of Japan. So be cautious as you venture out into the night, for these urban legends may be closer than you think. The Slit-Mouthed Woman. It was a rainy evening in Tokyo, the kind where the city seemed to weep along with the sky. The usually bustling streets were eerily quiet, save for the occasional sound of tires splashing through puddles. Aya, a university student, had stayed late in the library to finish her term paper. She sighed in relief as she finally saved her document and shut down her laptop. Glancing at her watch, she realized it was already 10 p.m. Aya quickly packed her things and made her way to the nearest bus stop, hoping to catch the last bus home. The rain was coming down harder now, and her umbrella struggled against the wind. The streetlights cast a dim yellow glow, barely penetrating the heavy downpour. As she waited at the deserted bus stop, Aya noticed a figure standing a few meters away. It was a woman, her long, dark hair plastered against her face by the rain. She wore a red surgical mask, the kind people often use during flu season. The woman's clothes were old-fashioned, a long coat and a skirt that seemed out of place in the modern city. Aya felt a shiver run down her spine. There was something unsettling about the way the woman stood so still, staring at her with dark, unreadable eyes. She looked away, trying to ignore the growing sense of unease. Moments later, she heard the soft, almost inaudible sound of footsteps approaching. "Excuse me," the woman said, her voice muffled by the mask. "Do you think I'm beautiful?" Aya was taken aback. It was such an odd question from a stranger in the middle of a stormy night, but she nodded politely, trying to hide her discomfort. "Yes, you are," she replied, hoping that would be the end of it. The woman reached up and slowly removed her mask, revealing a ghastly sight. Her mouth was slit from ear to ear, the flesh jagged and raw, as if it had been cut with a dull knife. The grin she wore was grotesque, a horrifying parody of a smile. "How about now?" the woman asked, her voice now a sinister whisper. Aya's heart pounded in her chest. She took a step back, her mind racing for an escape. The woman stepped forward, matching her retreat. Desperation seized Aya. "Yes," she stammered, her voice trembling. "You're still beautiful." The woman's smile widened, and for a moment Aya thought she might let her go. But then the woman pulled out a large pair of scissors from her coat. "Liar," she hissed. Aya turned and ran, her feet slipping on the wet pavement. She could hear the woman's footsteps behind her, the sound of the scissors snipping through the air. Her lungs burned and her vision blurred with tears and rain. She darted into an alley, hoping to lose her pursuer. The alley was a dead end. Panting and cornered, Aya searched frantically for a way out. The woman appeared at the mouth of the alley, her form silhouetted by the dim light. She moved slowly, deliberately, savoring the terror she was causing. "Do you think I'm beautiful?" she repeated, her voice echoing off the brick walls. Aya's mind raced. She remembered an old urban legend about this woman, Kuchisake Onna, the Slit-Mouthed Woman. There was a way to escape her, a trick to confuse her. Summoning all her courage, Aya shouted, "You're average!" The woman stopped, her head tilting to one side, confusion flickering in her eyes. It was just enough of a distraction for Aya to dart past her and back onto the main street. She didn't look back, didn't stop running until she reached the safety of a crowded convenience store. Breathless and drenched, Aya collapsed on the floor, sobbing in relief. She was safe for now, but the image of that horrific grin would haunt her forever, a reminder of the night she narrowly escaped the Slit-Mouthed Woman. And somewhere in the shadows of Tokyo, Kuchisake Onna continued her hunt, waiting for the next unfortunate soul to cross her path. Teke Teke. It was a cold winter night in Hokkaido. Snow covered the ground, and the moon shone brightly in the sky. Kenji, a high school student, had stayed late at his friend's house playing video games. When he looked at the clock, he saw it was almost midnight. "I need to go home," Kenji said. "My parents will be worried." "Take care, Kenji," his friend replied. "Be careful." Kenji put on his coat and stepped out into the cold night. The streets were empty and silent. He decided to take a shortcut through an old, quiet train station to get home faster. The train station was dark and eerie. The only sound was the wind blowing through the broken windows. As Kenji walked past the tracks, he heard a strange noise. It sounded like something was dragging along the ground. It went tick, tick, tick. Kenji stopped and looked around. He saw nothing but darkness. He shook his head and kept walking, but the sound followed him. Teke, tek, tek. It was getting closer. Kenji's heart started to race. He turned around and saw a figure crawling toward him. It was a woman, but she had no legs. She was using her elbows to move, making the eerie tek, tek sound. Her face was twisted with anger, and her eyes burned with hatred. Kenji froze in fear. He had heard stories about Teke Teke, a ghost of a woman who was cut in half by a train. She crawls around at night, looking for her lower half. If she catches you, she will cut you in half to make you like her. The ghost moved faster, her eyes never leaving Kenji. Teke, tek, tek. Kenji knew he had to run. He turned and sprinted as fast as he could, his breath coming out in white puffs in the cold air. He could still hear her behind him, the terrible tek, tek sound getting louder. Kenji's legs burned, but he didn't stop. He reached the end of the station and ran into the street, looking for help. A car was coming down the road. Kenji waved his arms and shouted, "Help! Please help!" The car stopped, and the driver, a middle-aged man, rolled down the window. "What's wrong?" "There's something chasing me. Please let me in," Kenji cried. The man opened the door, and Kenji jumped in, slamming it shut behind him. He looked back at the train station. The woman was standing at the edge of the platform, her eyes locked onto him. Then she slowly disappeared into the darkness. Kenji sighed with relief. Thank you so much." The driver nodded. "You're safe now. Let's get you home." As they drove away, Kenji couldn't stop thinking about Teke Teke. He knew he had been lucky. He had escaped this time, but the ghost was still out there, waiting for her next victim. The sound of tek, tek would haunt his dreams for many nights to come. Red Cloak. In a small town in Japan, there was an old school with a spooky legend. The legend was about AKA Manto, or the Red Cloak. Students whispered about a ghost that haunted the last stall in the girls' bathroom. They said if you used that stall, AKA Manto would appear and ask a deadly question. One rainy afternoon, Yuki, a new student, stayed late to finish her homework. She didn't know about the ghost story. When she felt the urge to use the bathroom, she headed to the nearest one, which was empty and quiet. Yuki walked into the last stall. As she closed the door, she heard a soft whisper. "Do you want red paper or blue paper?" Yuki looked around, confused. "Who's there?" she asked. Again, the whisper came, closer this time. "Do you want red paper or blue paper?" Yuki thought it was a prank. "Blue paper," she said, trying to play along. Suddenly, she felt something cold wrap around her neck. She gasped for breath, her vision blurring. The grip tightened, and she fell to the floor, unconscious. A few minutes later, Yuki woke up on the cold tiles, her head throbbing. She stumbled out of the stall, gasping for air. She ran to her teacher, Miss Tanaka, who was still in the building. "Miss Tanaka, someone attacked me in the bathroom," Yuki cried. Miss Tanaka's face went pale. "Did you use the last stall?" she asked. Yuki nodded, still shaking. Miss Tanaka sighed and took Yuki's hand. "You met AKA Manto, the Red Cloak? He's a ghost that asks if you want red paper or blue paper. If you say red, he slashes you to death, making your clothes red with blood. If you say blue, he strangles you, turning your face blue." Yuki's eyes widened in fear. "But I didn't know. What should I have done?" Miss Tanaka looked serious. "The only way to escape is to say no paper and quickly leave the stall. Never answer his question." The next day, the school closed the bathroom for repairs. But the story of AKA Manto spread, and no one dared to use the last stall again. Yuki never forgot her close encounter with the Red Cloak. She always warned new students about the ghost, hoping they wouldn't make the same mistake. And every time she passed that bathroom, she shivered, remembering the cold whisper and the tight grip of AKA Manto.